How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. Preseason week 2 here, coming about the day. Video will probably be out after the preseason game. Come to think, we'll see what happens here. It might be out before, right, or the day right after. Nonetheless, coming up on the regular season, Ja'Marr Chase still holding out. Now, a lot has changed. It was a few weeks ago we were saying you have got to sign this man right now. Why are we waiting? I don't know. You know what? Now that we've had time to think about it, now that Ja'Marr Chase has had a chance to kind of really show a little bit more of his colors, you start to wonder if extending Ja'Marr Chase is the answer. Or is extending, again, it's only been a couple weeks. That's just us can only imagine what the organization's going through. Is extending Ja'Marr Chase the answer? Is that a smart business decision? A lot to talk about here. We'll dive into the numbers. Yeah, we're going to bring up Penei Sewell again. I think it's very important. Honestly, it's very important in considering building a team. We're going to bring up the numbers on that. But, let's start with Ja'Marr Chase's situation. He says, all right, I'm going to hold in. I'm going to show up to camp, try to practice. Not practice, but I'm going to be here for the team. I said, all right, cool. Team players, he wants to get paid, but he's going to be here. He's going to show up for the team. And now he's not even showing up to practice. Kind of, putting his foot on the throttle a little bit, saying, no, you're going to pay me. Or I'm just, he starts to play games, if you will. Getting to be a little bit of, what's happening here? And there's a couple things you can kind of look at here and say. Because if Joe Burrow would have held out in his third year as a quarterback and said, Mike, pay me now, or I'm not signing with this team. All right, or here's the check, sign it. Because every single year you wait, that salary cap goes up, that bill goes up. So 2 years from now, if you wait until 2 years from now to sign Ja'Marr Chase, that 35 is going to be 40. So yeah, give him the money. Which makes you wonder, is it just the boy Mike Brown is? Or is there this chance that... does Ja'Marr even want paid right now? Or is he asking for an outlandish amount of money, like a 38, like a 39 million, saying, well, it's going to be a couple years until then. I just want my guaranteed money now. Because a lot of that doesn't make sense to me. Because if I'm Chase, I'm waiting another year. Mark's just going to go up more. Why would I want to sign early? If it's about the money, why would I want to sign early? And that makes you wonder, is this just a ploy not to show up to camp? Could be off balance, could be completely off base here, but we was looking at it back in the day. We was looking at Malik Neighbor, thinking fantasy, like how Neighbor's doing LSU. I was like, let's go back to. I love reminiscing on those Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase LSU days, and it's like I remember then, saying it's like, well, Justin Jefferson was the volume guy. Justin Jefferson was like, getting the ball more. Chase was he was the guy that was getting open, but Jefferson was really the cream of the crop, even in LSU. But Ja'Marr was just more the flashier guy. That was Joe's guy. But Justin, even in college, was the better player. And, we was going down that road, just kind of thinking, let's take a look, whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Ja'Marr sat out after his sophomore. He played 1 year of college ball, and he sat out. Worried about making sure he gets drafted. Everything else, didn't want to participate. And it's like, hey, at the time, you understand to an extent, players do it. Rarely, very, very rarely do you see that out of the wide receiver position. But it happened. It is what it is. But now we see 2 years left on a contract. 2, not 1, not the franchise tag, not the double franchise tag. It's 2 years left on a contract, and this man's not practicing. Again, this is the thing. We love Ja'Marr, love the guy. I want Ja'Marr Chase on my football team. That guy balls out. Let's not make a mistake about it. He's not a top 3 wide receiver, but you can put him in a top 5 conversation, and you can put that argument there quite a bit. Understandably so. You want great players on your football team. But you also have to look at the future. You have to look at where your team's going to be. You want to build, the big decisions are those decisions you make for the future that decide whether you're a dynasty or whether you're a contender every year. You're going to be a contender every year with Joe Burrow. What you put around him is going to determine how much, this team can go. They made that Super Bowl run. At the end of the day, you had a quarterback who was just a winner and found ways to win football games. But it wasn't their offense that got him there. It was Evan McPherson and their defense. And again, you had a quarterback that found ways to get you in those situations to win the football game. And he found ways to win the football game. But it was by no stretch to imagine their offense. Their offense wasn't even a top 10 ranked offense that year. That being said, it's important what you put around them. And we go back to Jamar Chase. And what I worry about with Jamar Chase, we brought it up because of how good he is of a player. What I worry about is when you're that content, he showed us his colors multiple times now. This is the double-ended sword. Of course, we're all kind of attached to this guy. He's a great player. You want great players on your football team. You see the good moments a guy brings to your team. You don't want to let those guys go. It was hard to watch C.J. Uzomah go, But you have to wonder, looking past the emotional and what I call the honeymoon phase of a wide receiver, looking past that. 2 times now he's calling to come out and said, I'm happy to sit on a couch. I'm more than happy to walk away from the football game for some other person, for a financial personal interest or whatever personal interest it is. At the end of the day, he's not, to me, you're telling me, making it loud and clear that you're just not the same type of competitor. Competitors that are here for the team, that want to win football games, they're going to show up regardless. T. Higgins, prime example. He wants contract. He wants paid. He planned on a franchise tag. He wanted to trade me, but who caught that? Was it first pass of the game, preseason game? It was number 5, because he's showing up. That's the kind of football player you want on your team in the long run, because those guys that get paid, wrong sport, Anthony Rendon. Some of these guys, they get paid and they just don't have the same passion for the game. You want those guys that are absolute competitors, because when they get older, when times get more difficult, those guys are grinding it out. Those guys are finding ways to get open. Those guys are finding ways to get better. And meanwhile, other guys that are just like, my heart's not there the same. You start to see the decline happen quicker. You start to see the diva side open up and shine brighter. And for me, I'm looking at Jamar Chase and saying I'm worried about that side of him, because the ability on the field is there. But you're investing in this guy if you sign him now for 6 seasons. He'll be 27, 28, 29, and 30 on what would be an expected 4-year deal. And seeing what we see out of Jamar Chase, there's no question about it. The next 2 years, he's going to be stellar. You franchise tag, he's going to be stellar that year too. But what are you going to get out of year 29? What are you going to get out of year 30? Those are the years that worry me. And that's where you say, when you're paying that guy top wide receiver in the league money, you have to get top wide receiver in the league production. You have to get top 3 receiver in the league production, because when you do not get that, you're setting your team back, because you allocated all that money to that position. Could have put it on the offensive line. Could have put it on the defensive line. Could have put it on the secondary, whatever. When you get caught spending money like that, you end up like Andrew Luck. You end up like Drew Brees. Drew Brees being, 35 points a game, no defense though. That's what happens when you don't be careful with how you allocate your money and you overspend in a particular situation. And that worries me with Jamar Chase. It worries me knowing, hey, if the Bengals just bulk up an offensive line, if you gave them T. Higgins, and this is the thing with T. Higgins. I mean, you remember when we went into this offseason, it was talk $25 million a year, and people were like, that's too much. He could still be in that ballpark. He's not lighting the numbers up because he's not the number 1. But he could still be in that ballpark. If you give me T. Higgins, and if you can get Yossi and Burton to be like a Mo Sanu and Marvin Jones type of play, that is way more than enough for Joe Burrow. If you don't think that Joe Burrow with those 3 players and a top 10 offensive line wouldn't be a top 10, top 5 offense year in and year out, you don't have faith in Joe Burrow's true abilities, I don't think. That's just my personal opinion, because he's the Peyton Mannings, he's the Tom Brady of the world. They're going to put up numbers with solid players. They don't need the best of the best. They need average, but you can give them one above average, whatever. They'll be all right, because that's the Joe Burrow effect. And then you spend on the line. And then you spend elsewhere. So when you look at that and say, yeah, all you need is one of those guys to turn out with Higgins, and you look at that and say the Bengals historically have done really well at one position in the draft, and that's the wide receiver position. Why pay a position so much money at the premium when you know of all the positions, that's the one you excel at best of, keeping the cap down on, because every single year you pluck these guys out of the draft and do really well. It just doesn't make sense to lock some. When you really think about it, besides him being, the connections he's got with Burrow, the talent he has, yeah, absolutely, you want to keep a guy like that. But at the same time, if you know year in and year out, this team finds ways to draft and develop good wide receivers, why would you spend all that money there if you could sign again? Well, this is where we talk about Penei Sewell, an elite offensive linemen. The talk was there at the time. Sewell or Chase. Year one, it looked like, okay, Chase is the guy. Ever since then, it's been all Sewell. It's not even been close. Last 2 seasons, Lions rankings 3rd, 4th in the league, respectively, as far as offensive yards is concerned. Rushing yards per game, 11th, 17th, 5th. Bengals, 31st, 28th, 22nd. Terrible. Not a complete football team all around. And now Sewell's not the only guy, but he is currently the number 1 ranked tackle in Pro Football Focus. He is currently an all-pro, and he is currently a game changer. Think of what Trent Williams did for the San Francisco 49ers when he did what got injured last year. Remember, 49ers dominant team in the league. Williams goes down, they lose 3 in a row. All of a sudden, what was happening to the 49ers? They're not the flashy players, so nobody talks about him. He's not flashy like Jamar is, so it goes unnoticed. But the game-changing abilities that a tackle and offensive lineman has, that is the cream of the crop. What's Jamar Chase doing for Chase Brown? What's Jamar Chase doing for Joe Burrow's calf? Or his wrist, or his ACL, right? The impact is immaculate, what we've seen out of Sewell for the Lions these last couple of seasons. Again, he's not the only one, but there's no question about it, he's a game changer. Jared Goff was supposed to be sitting on a couch right now. That guy was a placeholder. They had no intentions of keeping him. That's how bad the quarterback situation was there. We got Joe frickin' Burrow. You give him that offensive line, the Lions, and they ain't even questioning the Mahomes and Burrow debate. Man's got a Super Bowl right now, and they're up there right next to each other. It's no longer clearly Mahomes. It's a debate. We're LeBron Jordan in this thing with Burrow and Mahomes. But that's not happening because Jamar Chase just doesn't have the same impact. Period. And if he did, again, you'd see that reflected because it's Joe frickin' Burrow. All these weapons around him. This team around him, they're not producing. I understand there's many injuries that come up. Again, injuries come up, though. Partly an offensive line problem, partly because of the decision you made. But again, it's just, it can't go unnoticed, this Lions situation, because David Montgomery was averaging 4 yards a carry. It looked like he was out the door as well. Swift's the man up. Gibbs is the man up. It looked like he was out the door. Hey, Jamal Williams was a backup, split timeshare backup, running back coming in there averaging 4 more yards per carry than Joe Mixon was. Montgomery was averaging 4 in Chicago, came to Detroit 4.6. The effect a team can have on a running back, on a quarterback, and a quarterback's offense because of that offensive line. Now, we can't go back and fix the Sewell thing, but we can think about the future when that time comes to extend a Nemarius Minshew-Stellar, to pay for or sign another stellar offensive lineman. You keep those guys on your team 10, 15 years, the impact it has on the team as a whole. And you think about that down the road, 6 years from now, you have to think, what if you do get another stellar lineman? Well, now you got Chase or that lineman. One's got to walk. Chase is getting $35, $40 million for 2 years. You can't get rid of him now. The tough decisions eventually come. Right now, not as tough. But eventually, when you're playing football, Super Bowl winning football, you have to let guys go. And the last thing you want to let go is a stellar offensive lineman. That being said, let's dive into the Jamar Chase numbers a little bit. Because, we talk about the impact of Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is supposed to be the deep threat of this football team. Now, you may be surprised on this one. Average depth of target last season. Jamar Chase, 9.1 yards. Now, I know Jake Browning was there. Say what you will. Year before, 9.9. Okay, a little bit of a downgrade. First year in the league, numbers are way higher. But here's the kicker. That's your deep threat. T. Higgins ain't your deep threat. Last year, T. Higgins was averaging 13.1 yards per attempt. Or average depth of target was 13.1 yards. And the reason that's important, a couple of things. First of all, that just means, they was using Higgins more statistically speaking deep, but that's probably not the case. What the case was Jamar was the one getting the screen passes day in and day out. And those screen passes, end of the day, they add up. Chase might have had 100, 120, 130 yards on screen passes alone last season. Those are basic catches. Anybody can get those yards. What if you take that 130 off of Chase's numbers and you throw them on T. Higgins? Then what are we saying about Higgins? Stuff like that goes unseen is very important to me, I think. And again, you can go into the Pro Football Focus thing if you want to go that route. Chase was the 14th ranked wide receiver last season. He graded an 85, which actually was his highest grade in a Bengals uniform over 3 seasons, which is don't know. Their system kind of around the block sometimes confuses me. But I will say one thing, of all the analysts, the data and stuff, Pro Football Focus has usually been pretty pro Bengals actually of places. Joe Burrow, as high as rated, they give him more than the respect the last couple of seasons. But looking into that, and you say, hey, you keep Higgins. He's not Jamar. He's not, but he is a bigger body guy. He's a bigger touchdown threat. He's a bigger red zone threat. He's bigger right now. He's a better contested catch threat, I think, just because of his size and ability alone. Right, that can't go unnoticed. He's not going to catch a slant and take it to the house like Chase is, though. He doesn't have that sort of big play, that burst, that quickness, that take one to the house type of threat that Chase does. But if Jermaine Burton's that, then you say, oh, okay, all right. Well, we kind of filled that void a little bit. There's a lot to take in here. But I just look at, again, I'm worried that you get to 29, you get to 30, and all of a sudden, you start to see that decline happen quickly. And that's just 2 years of Joe Burrow's career that you're wasting on a guy when you could have spent $10 million less on Higgins, spent that $10 million somewhere else. Now, who's to say Higgins is $10 million less? And maybe they only give him a 3-year deal. Maybe they give him 3 and, he walks out the deal. I just feel like, you look at that situation, and what's so important to me when you're extending players' contracts and understanding their drive for the game, their competitive nature, and how much they want to be here to win. Because once they get that money, players change. Antonio Brown, example. Le'Veon Bell. The heart and the way he played, and all of a sudden he got that money finally. Still was right on the ball. That disappeared. You got to watch out for that, even with the greats. And that concerns me with Jamar Chase. It doesn't concern me with T. Higgins. His health concerns me. His passion and love for the game doesn't, though, and you want that on your football team. So for me, if I'm the Bengals right now, what I'm looking at, you ride the 2 years out, you franchise tag him. If you double franchise tag, you could franchise on 2 years if you wanted to, but you franchise tag him, now all of a sudden you got year 25, year 26, year 27. And now, well, no, it'd be 24, 25, 26, 27 to be going, 28 to be going if it was a double franchise. But you look at that and say, okay, now we got this, we pretty much soaked up this man's entire prime. 28, 29, you get some good years at 29, 28, 29, that's where things can get a little bit shaky. Last thing you want to do is have Jamar Chase under contract till he's 31, because things, again, he could be stuck, don't get me wrong, he could be still at 31. Guys have done it. That's when things get shaky, and when you're trying to build a dynasty, you're trying to build a constant winner, you have to be very, very mindful of how you spend that money on the wide receiver position. But I think that's the best route you look, because then in 2 years from now, the Bengals look and say, hey, okay, you know what? Burton's bad. Joseph ain't nothing. Higgins, he's gone. We ain't got nothing. Then you can say, okay, here you go, Chase. Here's your money. We ain't got a choice. Right now, they got all the choices in the world. You do not know where the Bengals will be in 2 years. There's too much time between now and then to say we could let this man walk. Why would you keep Jamar Chase? If Jermaine Burton came out and started to play, he ain't gonna be. What if he did? What if he gave? I mean, who's to say he's not? But what if he gave you Tyreek Hill? That kind of speed, that side of ability. Do you need him and Chase for 4 years? The younger player, not to mention. Or you draft another receiver next year after that. Comes up is a stud. So it's an interesting thing for the Bengals to tie themselves down for 6 years. I don't think it's a good idea. Because worst comes to worst, then you sign him in 2 years. We'll see what happens, though. Love y'all's thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.